Hello and welcome to Lost Within Lost, the podcast where we are rewatching the 10 highest rated episodes of Lost. My name is Dan, and my controversial Lost opinion is that The Constant, while an entertaining piece of television, is not even in the top 10 of Lost episodes. Put that in your pipe and smoke monster it.
Hello, my name is Chris, and Dan, I'm going to need to see that list.
Hello and welcome to Lost Within Lost, the podcast where we just finished rewatching the 10 best episodes of Lost.
That's right, Dan. We watched them, we ranked them, and we finally answered the age-old question, is The Constant the greatest episode of Lost?
And we came down with an emphatic, no, it's not, right? Both of us said no.
I don't think it was emphatic. There was a lot of strong support for The Constant.
Yes. Not from me, from everybody else. It's not even in my top 10.
That's right. I think you were on your own, Dan, but it was a fantastic exercise. I made a friend break a 20-year oath, and happy to report that we're still friends. Fiona still talks to me.
Excellent.
We even caught a ninja, the famous Lost ninja. We caught him, we unmasked him. And
how many other Lost podcasts can claim that they caught a ninja? I don't think many.
That's right. I'm still waiting for the Lost Wiki to reach out to us.
Yep.
I haven't seen their pages updated since that interview. But Dan, you called me up a while back. You wanted me to meet you in an abandoned airport car park.
Yeah.
And you said we have to go back. We have to go back. So Dan, where do you want to go?
Well, the thing is, after Lost, Damon Lindelof, I think it was the reception to the finale in particular was quite scarring for Lindelof and Hughes, but mostly Lindelof. I think he abandoned Twitter, got in early on the abandoning Twitter job. Good work, Damon. But he went away and he kind of learnt a whole heap of lessons from his time on the show, and has since then he's created television that it's not as popular or culture changing or as ubiquitous as Lost. But I'd argue it's perhaps even better constructed. That they may even be technically better television shows. Like there's shows still with like the same jaw-dropping twists that we came to love in Lost. Great characterization, but without all the messiness that inevitably arises when you're doing a network television show and you're trying to get out 24 episodes a season, and it's just too much to realistically do. So I'm talking about The Leftovers. I'm talking about Mrs. Davis, but mostly I'm talking about his now pretty much forgotten 2019 masterpiece, Watchmen.
Yeah, that 2019 is such a burden because we all know everything fell out of our brains about a year after, and it was such a perfect time because it ended up reflecting the climate then, and geez, it was almost a predictor of where we're at now. But you're right that 2019, it feels like another lifetime ago. So, Dan, I think it's a convincing argument. You're right. Lindelof really, he evolved. I think he learnt from lessons, and that show won 11 Emmy Awards, incredible. So I'd love to go back, revisit it. So let's do it. This is it, the podcast.
No. But before we do the TV show, we can't do the Watchmen TV show without a proper grounding. We need, the Watchmen TV show. It's brilliant. It's fantastic. It's glorious. But even better than the Watchmen TV show is the Watchmen comic book. And I know you've expressed your distaste for the medium of superhero comics before, infamously.
Yeah, they do like to trick you.
But I'm going to have to ask you to bear with me.
Okay, all right.
Because the Watchmen comic, we have to talk about that one.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I am familiar with the comic, right? And my secret shame is that I rushed through a reading of that in preparation for the movie. So I don't think I ever really... Snyder movie. I don't think I ever gave it a real fair shake. So, okay, makes sense. Let's do it. So let's go back even further.
Yep.
Let's go back to 1986 and talk about the Watchmen comic book series.
Yeah, let's do that. And before we begin, obviously there will be spoilers. And if you haven't read Watchmen, if you haven't seen the TV show, if you haven't seen the movie, if you don't know anything about Watchmen, congratulations on tuning into this, by the way. Really good choice.
Yes.
But please go away and read Watchmen. You can find it anywhere. It's like one of the most ubiquitous comic books in the world. Track it down, read it, because it contains some of the greatest comic book writing and one of the all-time trope-destroying plot twists. And you don't want me to reveal it to you in a stupid podcast. You want to read it and experience it for yourself.
That's right. Look, I was at a bookstore on the weekend, and they're like a fresh new printing of the what we can now call a graphic novel, the collected 12 issues. It's an even tidier version now. It almost sort of fits in your pocket. So no excuses if you've never read it before.
And that's
go
like
out and grab a
$20 or
copy.
something Australian dollars. It's like really
Yeah,
cheap. That's a
yeah,
great little
yeah.
edition.
Yeah, really easy to come by. So press pause. We will and come back once you've read read the comic,
Yep.
because that's what we're going to do now, right, Dan? Let's go. Let's cover The Watchmen.
Yep.
Written by Alan Moore,
Mm-hmm.
artwork by Dave Gibbons, colors by John Higgins. I'll need you to explain colors to me, Dan.
That's just the person who
And-
colours in the drawings. It's like
Okay.
someone gets a colour and they colour in the lines. It's like they're really
Yes.
good at it. Like never go out of the lines. They're fantastic.
And we're going back to September 1986. I believe that's when the first issue came out. I couldn't nail down the exact day that the stores were filled with that first issue. I have no idea what anticipation was like. I have no idea if anyone even cared. So I'm hoping, Dan, you can give me some perspective there. And I think to help learn as much as we can, and you mentioned that twist, issue 11, Look on My Works, Ye Mighty, that was released in August 1987. So we're going to zero in
Yes.
on that specifically. That's where we're going to do our most learning. So a little bit different. We're going to talk about a comic book now. We're reading it. We're not watching it. So we're going to do things a little bit differently. But Dan, you're the self-admitted expert. Before I let you take center stage and kind of discuss this, I do want to set the scene, and it wouldn't be this podcast if I didn't just, help paint the picture. What was going on?
1987's a long time ago, man.
Is a very long time ago. August 1987. Any ideas? The biggest music. What are we hearing on the radio? Any guesses?
Oh, 80s. This is my era. 80s. We're talking like, this is a kind of a Prince era. This is a, who else is big?
I've got a US answer and an Australian answer.
Oh, okay.
And when you think 80s, you can go really camp, but then you can also go with some classic rock. So
Right.
in Australia, we were embarrassing ourselves. In America, they were, respectable.
Right. Well, this is, it's after Australiana, so we weren't embarrassing ourselves that badly, right?
No. But there was a young lady who would almost take over the world.
I think this is peak Kylie era. I think this is Neighbours. Kylie's.
This is
like, is she lucky or is she
Oh,
locomoting?
she is locomoting all over our screens in Australia, and over in the US they were this Irish band that I've never gotten into. Yeah, U2. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. That feels like peak U2. I think if I did.
Yeah, we're talking Joshua Tree. They had about 5 singles off that album. They just went bang, 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 bang. They were all top of the pops at some point.
But shout out to my favorite song when back in 1987 when I was but a 6-year-old watching whatever I could on the telly and seeing Star Trekkin' by The Firm, which if you've never seen, I will put up on social media. Which, fun fact, Australia, this song reached number 3 in Australia, right? A massive overachievement.
Great pride.
Yeah, did not, this song...
Was it held off by Kylie?
I think so. Did not get anywhere near that in the US, UK, or anywhere else. But there was one other country where it managed to beat number 3, and it got to number 2 in New Zealand. Ooh. So the Australian-New Zealand love affair with Star Trek and our comedy novelty songs. Shut Up in Your Face had probably been and gone by this point. So that's what was going on the radio.
And of course, that's the only way you could listen to music in those days. I mean, you could get a cassette tape, but this is pre-CDs, pre-streaming.
I think we had was MTV in your world? I
was living in the country. I was a country bumpkin, so I had very little. I had Rage on the ABC. But Rage rarely had. They did have countdowns every now and then of the kind of top pop songs, but there was a lot of alternative stuff there as well.
Yeah, that's how I would have seen everything. A bit of rage.
Countdown, of course, with Molly.
Yes, yeah. We won't get into that. We'll be here all day. That's another word. But if you are an international listener,
Yes.
Google the word Molly and countdown, and do that on YouTube, and enjoy
Yourselves. Do yourself a favour.
Yes. Nice one, Dan. I also wanted to know what was going on at the movies at the time, August 1987. Now, Australian records have not been captured from that time, so we have to stick with US box office. But Dan, how old are you in 87?
I'm 16 in August 87, so...
Oh, they're making movies for you.
They are making a lot. So Die Hard's around now, isn't it? Isn't Die Hard in this very...
So... Before I get to August, I was like, I'm going to have to go all the way back to February. So this is what's at the cinema. No, these are the number one films for a period of time until the next thing comes out and overtakes. So back in February, Platoon is the number one film, overtaken by A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
Yep, Dream Warriors, love that.
Yep. I remember seeing ads for that on the TV and absolutely packing my DAX.
Because you were, 6, weren't you?
Yeah, 6. I shouldn't be seeing that on the TV. and someone called Johnny Depp or something was, I think, was going to be in one of them. And then this man takes over the planet in Lethal Weapon. Mel Gibson.
Yep.
Yeah, number one at the box office for a good month there. But eventually knocked off by another police procedural film. Hard-hitting, gritty.
Wasn't it Dirty Harry? Dirty Harry's done by then, surely.
No.
Oh, was it Police Academy something?
Yeah, Police Academy 4.
Yes, there you go.
Citizens on Patrol.
Yep.
I can't remember what city they're in there, but they're cleaning
on patrol
up streets.
Anyway.
Yep. Bobcat Goldthwait is, I'm sure he's in that one. By the time we get to May, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Eddie Murphy's also taken over the world. The Untouchables. Comes along. Knocked off by Predator.
Knocked off by Predator, yeah. Yep. Such a stupid, brilliant movie.
Yes. Then The Witches of Eastwick.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Movies. Yes. And then the movie remake of Dragnet, which I think was Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd, yeah. Tom Hanks as well, I think.
Yes. Knocked off by Revenge of the Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise.
Oh, God, I'm certain that's aged very poorly.
Yes, yeah. I won't be endorsing that. And then when we get to the week of August, where the big issue of Watchmen comes out, The Living Daylights. Now I had to look this up.
It's a Bond movie.
It is. I was shocked at this. I was like, is this canon? Is it real? Because I'd never heard this title before.
Oh, yeah, no. Didn't Duran do the soundtrack for that one, or they did A View to a Kill? I can't remember. Yeah, it's all.
I'm not sure, but that does sound like 1987. Yeah, this is Timothy Dalton era of Bond. I don't think people love Timothy Dalton.
No.
I had to get
a placeholder till Pierce Brosnan came along.
Yeah. Well, I had to get an idea of how the film was received. It's 6.7 on IMDb. That's not bad.
It's okay.
But on the tomato meter, this is the 13th best ranked Bond film.
How many are
out
there?
Of 27?
So it's right in the middle. Pretty much.
Yeah, right in the middle. But there's some Brosnan stuff is is much lower. Yeah. So thought that was interesting. And then for about 5 weeks, this is like the longest run of the year. What knocks off The Living Daylights and is up and about in August is a film called Stakeout, which
I don't actually remember Stakeout.
No, so live on this podcast, I'm going to send Dan Liebke the poster for Stakeout, and this is the most 1987 film poster imaginable.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. So we have we have Richard Dreyfuss and Emilio Estevez hiding under a bed, and all we could see are a women's pair of legs putting on high-heeled red shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine that one of these men is married to this woman, and the other one's their cop mate, and they've decided they're going to follow her around and make sure she doesn't do anything that would disrupt their masculinity. That's my prediction for how that movie works.
It's slightly off. They were a little bit more inventive then. You'll kick yourself when I read this. 2 detectives observe an escaped convict's ex-girlfriend. They observe the ex-girlfriend of the escaped convict, but complications set in when one of them falls for her.
There you go.
I'm imagining that's Emilio.
Yeah.
So I will also share that on the socials because this was back in the day when they used to draw the artwork. This is not a photo shoot. This is
it's like a little comic.
That's right. Yeah. If we get back into it, Dan, just that's what was happening at the movies. Also worth noting, Damon Lindelof is 13 years old at this point as well.
So
that's
years
where
younger than me.
Yeah. But I'm sure he was reading it. So Dan, you said you were 16.
Mm-hmm.
Had you picked up The Watchmen or
no
other stuff going on in your life?
See, because I'm a country bumpkin, I grew up in the country. No comic book shops in the country. Only got your comic books from the news agency, and it was nothing. Watchmen is for adults. It was not thrown into news agencies. It was just in comic book stores. So I didn't know anything about it. I eventually, because I would occasionally go in and buy comic book magazines and read them, and that's where I kind of learnt that this and The Dark Knight Returns and a few other ones were kind of these famous comics of 1986. And I kind of mentally noted that at some point I will have to get around to reading that, but I had no real way of getting to it till I went to university, which was a couple of years later. So about 1989 was when I actually got around to reading it.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll give you what I was doing because the answer's pretty short. I'm 6 and I'm in grade 1. So basically, I'm on a steady diet of He-Man.
Yep.
Trying to buy He-Man chocolates and get the tattoos and put them on myself.
You're probably learning to colour in like our good friend John Higgins.
Yeah, definitely not staying in the lines. You've got Super Ted, Banana Man. I remember my dad sat me down to watch Banana Man because it had the cast of the goodies.
Yes.
Watching a lot of the goodies and Banana Man. Care Bears are there, and then my all-time favourite, Inspector Gadget. That's my media diet.
Yep.
At this point in time. Maybe I rented Dot and the Kangaroo for the 50th time at the video store, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I was slightly more, mobile, but not really, because as I say, in a country town, like the nearest cinema was like an hour drive away. So we didn't actually go to the movies that often. Like we'd go to the video store, but we wouldn't see movies as they came out in the cinema unless it was something, super special.
Was it well stocked? I've got to know more about your local. I assume there was one.
Yeah, there are a couple, but one main one, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're getting Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, I think they were pretty good at getting them in because they knew they had the market cornered for all these, isolated bumpkins. So we just go in there and we'd, choose our videos and watch them all. We burned through a lot of videos in the old VCR.
Yeah, love it. Well, that's August 1987. Let's talk about The Watchmen. I will give you the floor, Dan. And as I mentioned earlier, my first experience with this was reading buzz around the Snyder movie, or that he was going to make that movie.
Yep.
I followed the production closely.
Okay.
And I bought a copy of the graphic novel. Bought it on Amazon.com because if you remember, in 2009. 2008, 2009, the Aussie dollar had a moment.
Yes, it did. Yes.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, I was on Amazon, and I was I was in a professional job for about 3 years at that point. Making a little bit of money, still living at home like a leech. And I was just spending money on, The Dark Knight. That looks great. I'm going to buy that.
Yep.
I'm going to buy The Watchmen. I'm going to buy DVDs of every movie I've ever liked. It was the glory days. And I bought The Watchmen and it never arrived. And I wrote my first ever, hey, what went wrong here? And I learned that Amazon, they don't care. They have no time for you. So they just send you another copy.
Yeah.
And so eventually I ended up with 2 because the other one had just gotten stuck somewhere. So always complain to Amazon. They'll just send you another one.
I can tell you my story of complaining to Amazon.
Yeah.
I had a very early Kindle because I love the idea of a Kindle. So this was back in similar kind of era. Bought myself a Kindle. Somehow it ended up behind my rolling chair. I rolled backwards over my Kindle and smashed it. And this was relatively recently after getting it. So I can't remember how I phrased it, but I said to Amazon, this broke. So not quite sure how it did. Maybe I dropped it. I don't know. Something happened. It smashed. And they said, that's fine. We'll give you a refund. And they gave me a refund. and then they sent me another one as well. So I ended up with a free Kindle, essentially, because I got a replacement and I got my money back for the first one, and it was all my fault. So I felt a bit bad about that, but oh, it's Amazon. What do they care?
I think Bezos is still good. I think you're all right. But that was pretty hot tech back then.
It was,
like
yeah.
a Kindle, yeah. All right, so give it to me, Dan. I know the Watchmen is, or it means a lot to you. I think you've written some words about it.
I have, yes. If you want to go to my newsletter, newsletter.danlipke.com, it's a special entry. It's my 1987 entry on my lifetime of superhero comics. So you can read kind of the detail of how I first discovered it. But before we get into any of that, I kind of just want to go all the way back to how this comic came to be.
I'd love to know.
So we'll start with Alan Moore. So Alan Moore is a UK writer. He's the greatest superhero comic book writer there's ever been. I don't think that's in dispute. He transformed the genre, just a genius. He got his start writing something called, and before you even start, you can't even say the name. It was originally called Marvel Man, and then they changed the name to Miracle Man because Marvel complained. But basically the premise was that he was going to treat this superhero who had the ability to basically say a magic word and turn into a superpowered being. He was going to treat that as if this was taking place in the real world and examine all the ramifications of that. And he did that. It was like one of the most brutal comics you've ever read in your life.
Wow.
And it kind of got him on the map as this guy who could just take what seems like a silly premise and twist it and make it really realistic.
So this is the birth of the what if superheroes were in our world kind of thing, which we have with The Boys and countless other things.
Yeah, and he was pretty much the first one to take it really seriously and like really work through the logical ramifications of all these things. And on the basis of that, he was DC said, like the cut of your jib, why don't you come over and write one of our comics? They gave him a comic book called Swamp Thing, which is about a swamp monster. And again, Moore came in, did his thing. He said, all right, this isn't about a swamp monster at all. This is not about a guy who's been transformed into a swamp monster. This is about plants who think they're a man because and he flipped it all around. And again, this is horror, basically. This is a horror book. But again, he's taken the premise, which is kind of ridiculous, that this man's turned into a swamp monster. He said, no. This is plants who've been imbued with the consciousness of a dead man and think they're alive. And then he wrote like this acclaimed run on that. And so he went on that. And so he's kind of proving himself as this guy who can just take the most ridiculous concepts and bring them to life. And
on that idea of, okay, we've, a new writer has come along to take the reins on a character and we know that some of these characters are 50 years old at this point. The idea of, I'm going to take this character in a different direction. Was that controversial?
It was. I mean, that's what we now call a retcon. But this is
right.
This is kind of before retcons existed. Usually, people would just come in and say, "I don't want to write about this bit anymore. I don't want to write about Jimmy Olsen. I'm going to write about Lois Lane." So they would just focus on different sections of the same character, or they'd just say, "Oh, I don't care about that villain. I'm not writing about that villain." Moore was the first one to really come in and go, "No, we'll keep everything that's been done before, but we're just going to retroactively create some new continuity, and we're going to explain that this is not what you thought it was." And everyone was, rather than being upset about it, they were all like, "Oh shit, that's really clever and good." And they kind of followed him from there, which kind of brings us to Charlton Comics. Now, DC's the DC brand is basically built up of all these other comic book companies that go bust. DC swoops in and buys all their heroes and then integrates them into their universe. So they did that with like Captain Marvel, Shazam, all those kind of ones. They did that with these Charlton Comics people. And Charlton Comics had a number of, just kind of relatively boring heroes. Although one of them, interestingly, was a hero called Peacemaker, who you may know now as kind of the flagship TV show of James Gunn's new DC universe. So
So John Cena's Peacemaker himself
was in the Charlton Comics.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can picture it, right? The dorky helmet.
Yeah.
The name, like I'm here to keep the peace.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was the intention for the character. That's fascinating. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That is really interesting. Yeah. Okay.
So a man called Paul Levitz, he was a comic writer and he was just kind of starting to pivot into like the executive levels of DC Comics. And one of his mates was a former Charlton editor. And so he said, "Oh, I'll get you the rights for these guys, so you can stay here at DC, but you can just keep writing." So he paid $5,000 to get these various Charlton characters, and so they became integrated into the DC branding,
Right?
And they could do whatever they wanted with them. And that's when Alan Moore popped up and said, "I've got a really good idea for a story, and I'm going to use these 6 superheroes, and you're not going to believe this story." And they kind of looked at the story and they said, "That's a really good story, Alan. Only problem is, by the time you get to the end of the story, all these characters are completely fucked up and destroyed, and we won't actually be able to use them going forward," which is not really the comic book business. Yeah.
Yeah, you want the story to be able to be picked up and go on and on and on and on. And as we know, up until only a few years ago, the Watchmen was 12 issues, and that was that.
Yep.
There was no more.
Yes. So what Levitz suggested to Moore, and they started getting editors in on this. They said, "All right, great story. Don't use the Charlton characters. Just make up your own versions of these Charlton characters." So he went away. Peacemaker, for example, became the comedian. Captain Atom became Dr. Manhattan, and basically just recreated them, tweaked them, merged them a little bit with other ideas, and that's where Watchmen came from.
Well, so they were kind of whole cloth new characters, somewhat.
Yeah. Just pivoting on the basic personalities of these ones. So Peacemaker's this out of control gunman who has no real morals. Right, you're now the comedian in Watchmen.
Okay.
So that's what he did, and then he started writing Watchmen, right? And Watchmen just kind of blew everybody away. Like from the first issue, you said you were curious how it was received. I'm not quite sure whether there was anticipation for it. Because again, I wasn't in comic book stores at the time. But from what I've read, like the instant the first issue came out, everyone was like, "Holy shit, what is this book? This is amazing," because it broke down, it destroyed everything everybody really understood about superhero comics at the time. Usually you've got a splashy cover with, you're not going to believe it, in this issue, Rorschach takes on the cops. And that would be a big splash and like big panels and enticing you to pick it up. Nah. That's not what they did with Watchmen. Instead, the cover of each issue is the first panel of the book. So it's basically...
You know what? I never even noticed that. And obviously I have the collected version.
Yep.
So you've got page breakers between issues, which I assumed, that's the cover, or must have been the cover at the time when it was released. But I never even connected the dots. And you mentioned that first issue, and I know we're not going to go issue by issue, but I was thinking that as I was rereading it, because regardless of superheroes or comic whatever, the idea of a murder and you've got the cops, the exposition between the police, who's done this, and then Rorschach coming in and suggesting that someone's taking out superhero. I assume again that's probably an idea that had rarely been tread upon, like, these people are being murdered or they're dying.
Yep.
And someone is killing the superheroes. And even that, as someone says, "Why should I read this?"
Yeah.
Go, okay, bunch of superheroes are being killed. They're trying to work out who did it.
Yep.
All the other, like, well, it's an alternate version of 1980. Nixon's still the president. I'm sure that drew a lot of people in as well. And some of that is hard. Like, I'm not very good at my Cold War history, but it's an incredible setup.
Yeah. And it kind of, it was perfectly timed. Like, as you mentioned, The Dark Knight Returns came out, a similar kind of era. And that was like this reimagining of Batman, where it's just like, what if Batman like really was the psycho that he would have to be dressing up as a bat and taking on criminals? And so the industry was very, very well set up. People were keen to read. Like, a lot of kids who'd grown up were like, "Oh, let's read about what it would be like if this was real," and that's what they provided. So Moore set it in more or less the real world. There's only really one of the heroes had actual powers, and of course the powers made him a god, essentially.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And as you said, there's this murder mystery going on. So, and we won't get into the details of the plot too much. I will point out issue 5 was one, and I didn't notice this the first time I read it. You may not notice this unless you've read about it. Issue 5 is called Fearful Symmetry, and it has a palindromic layout. So basically, the entire story, the panels symmetrical about the middle. So there's a big splash page in the middle, and then everything leading up to that goes in reverse all the way back. So it's just an amazingly constructed issue. And this is kind of Moore's bread and butter. Like, he does all these very clever, very structured pieces of work. The whole book is based on this 9-panel grid. That was another breakthrough. People used to like panels just jutting in wherever they wanted to. It was like, no, this is very strict. This is a 3x3 grouping, and it kind of simulated a camera, basically. Instead of like a fixed TV screen, you're looking in on what's going on rather than it exploding out to whatever size it needed to be. So it gave you a sense of observation.
I've always been curious of how, so if it's come from the brain of Alan Moore, and I know that Dave Gibbons gets a lot of praise because you've then got to translate that, and a lot of those decisions that you're talking about, they would have to work hand in hand in making that work and go, this is what I want to do and this is how I want it to work. A quick aside on, just because we're covering comic books, is there a rule to reading comic books? Because when you read these books, and you mentioned the detail that Alan Moore includes, so if I don't read a lot of comic books, but then I pick up Watchmen, I find myself reading through the panels, like, okay, through the dialogue, and then again I go back over the images, and then noticing things like, obviously, the smaller twist around Rorschach, or the reveal of Rorschach, and then you go, shit, now I'm gonna have to go back and see where I didn't notice things that we thought was background but really turned out to be important exposition, and like you said, framing like a movie where someone might pull out a gun or whatever, and you're like, oh shit, and then I go back and reread it. Plus, you've got the Frater stuff.
Yes.
Maybe we can get into later.
Well, yes.
I find it really difficult, so I read Frater bits first, and then I go back and read the panels again. I'm sure there's no rules, but like, that must have been massively different to your average Spider-Man book, right?
It's certainly far denser. I mean, even just the idea of having 9 panels on each page, like most comic books have 4 to 6 panels on a page as a rule. So just the fact that he's got 50% more information on any given page, and then you've got the text pages at the back, which again wasn't done. Usually they were saved for letter columns and things. So it's just so dense with information. And as you mentioned, Gibbons' artwork is so detailed and so precise. There's all the sugar cube wrappers. If you follow Rorschach, you can see he's stolen sugar cube. You can see the wrappers all over the place. So there's all these kind of running gags almost in the book. And
the attention to detail is amazing. And I'm sure the pressures of handing in a monthly book or whatever, but it sounds like Moore took it to them and said, here it is in a completed written form, somewhat completed.
No. I think he had the vague story. He certainly didn't have all the scripts done. Because he was changing things right till the end, apparently.
Really?
Yeah. But I think, he had the general spine of the story sorted. So, but his scripts are kind of infamously, so there are 2 different ways of writing a comic book. Basically, there's one way you write it, you say, Chris and Dan record a podcast, and then before they know it, a monster jumps in and they have to fight him off. And then this is called the Marvel Comics way. You basically hand that script. That's not a joke, by the way. You hand that script to the artist, and the artist just draws whatever they want to kind of match that story. And then you, the writer, go back in and you put in whatever dialogue kind of around whatever the artist has drawn. And that's kind of the traditional Marvel style. And then you've got the DC style, which is basically epitomized by Alan Moore, which is, I'm going to say, panel 1, we see precisely this. It's got this and this and this. Chris is up in the top left. Dan is at the bottom right. They are talking to one another over Zoom. You can see the microphone. It's at this angle. Chris says this, Dan says that, blah, blah, blah. Panel 2. And like, that's incredibly detailed, and that's what Moore does famously. It's got the most detailed writing of any comic book writer.
I'm sure any good storytelling, whether it's across film, or I watch a lot of Pixar films these days. I've always loved Pixar, but I watch them on repeat at the moment with my son, and I am constantly thinking about the storyboarding and the blocking and at what wait, because they have the control that you don't have with live actors, and a comic is the same.
Yep.
That you can, it's got to be this angle because I'm trying to convey this. That's fascinating to like. I enjoy my Marvel stuff, fun characters, but that's a really interesting insight into the, I guess, the level of detail that goes into these things.
Yeah, so Moore is a genius. He's slightly crazy, I think, but
Okay.
he declared on his 40th birthday. He said, "All right, I'm now a magician," and that wasn't a joke. He's like, he believes he's a magician. So which kind of brings us to issue 11, right? So you've got this, as you said, you've got this massive story. You've got this, superheroes being killed. Rorschach, our kind of point of view character. We've been following him around as he tries to do it. You've got Dr. Manhattan. He's the one with all the powers. He's been sent off to Mars. All kinds of things are happening. We're trying to work out who does it. Suddenly, Rorschach and his best mate, Night Owl, they realize that Ozymandias, the smartest man in the world, one of their old friends, he's been the one behind all these murders. And so, oh, fuck it, we've got to go off to Antarctica to arrest him because that's where his headquarters is. So off they go. They go down. They have a bit of a fight with him. They can't beat him because he's the toughest human superhero there is. And because he's a villain, he does what all villains do in every comic book I've ever read up until that point. He sits down and says, all right, this is my plan. And you're not going to believe it, but I swear to you, this is my villainous scheme. And the villainous scheme is that because we are in 1986 and there's nuclear war looming, Cold War, Russians are invading Afghanistan, US tension, Dr. Manhattan, who was the only thing preventing nuclear war before, he's been sent off to Mars. Yep. There's going to be a nuclear war unless somebody does something. Ozymandias says, all right, my solution is rather than have them fight, we're going to give them an extraterrestrial threat that will make them work together to fight off these dreaded aliens. And I'm going to drop a giant squid-like creature in the middle of Manhattan and kill, 3 million people and destroy the minds of millions of others. And they go, well, that's a fucking crazy idea, but that sounds like standard supervillain fare to me. And they say, all right, we're going to have to stop you, Adrian. When were you going to do this crazy idea? And that's when he drops the ultimate twist ending, the greatest twist you've ever seen in comic books to that point. Blew my mind the first time I read it. He says, I'm not a Republic serial villain, Dan. I did it 35 minutes ago. And it's just like, holy shit, he's done the big plot reveal, but he's already done the deed. And yep, we cut to this alien has destroyed most of New York.
It's stunning. And it was somewhat spoiled for me because my introduction to Watchmen was following film, comic book, movie stuff really closely, and The Dark Knight and all this stuff. And there was this rumors had gotten out that they weren't going to use that ending in the movie, or that you couldn't use that ending, and something about a squid. And I was like, well, that sounds bizarre. And then there were set photos of something, or he'd chosen something different, and I knew fans were in uproar. So then when I read it, I was like, this happens a lot when you watch The Simpsons. You're like, oh, now I know that reference. I did it 35 minutes ago. I'd seen it somewhere else. I don't know where. Obviously, I'd seen it referenced and was like, oh, that's where that's from. But I still admire and I've always thought, wouldn't it be amazing to put yourself in the shoes of a regular reader back then?
Oh, especially... but because you knew, the trope of the villain telling you what he's about to do. Just yeah.
Timothy Dalton had just done it on the big screen. I'm sure he'd just sat down with the whoever he was, Blofeld or someone, and had revealed his plot and said, well, too bad I'm here, and wrestled him to the ground.
And put him into it.
It was everywhere. Yeah.
As I think I might have said this on the season 3 finale episode that we did of Lost, where it's just like, those two are my two great twists. I won't spoil the season 3 finale, but it's got a similar level twist of, my God, I've never even considered that as a possibility. You blow my mind. Well done. Hats off to you. Applause. And the cool thing is, if you go back in the middle of issue 11 to page 5, right in the middle of the 9-panel grid, you can actually see him. He just kind of a throwaway thing. He presses a button and then he moves on to a few things. So it's actually there. And what I love about that is it's in the middle of page 5 in this 9-panel grid. And issue 5 was this symmetry issue where everything was, perfectly symmetrical. So
Mhm.
it sounds far-fetched to say, is the pressing of the button in the middle of page 5 of issue 11, is that a callback to the symmetrical issue 5? And that sounds far-fetched, but I wouldn't put anything past Alan Moore. Like the detail that he goes into with all this kind of stuff, it's just crazy good.
Because he obviously knows. It's such a one of my favorite twists, and I think we mentioned this when we talked about Lost and the Lost finale, was it for me on TV, the Breaking Bad twist.
Yep.
And so interesting that we're talking about Ozymandias
Yes.
and Walter White, because what I love about that was that they show you, like, I love a good twist when they're like, hey, it was there all along.
Yes. Yep.
You know, if you were paying attention. And I guess Moore's version of that is you get to see him do it in the panels, and the way that he did it, he's not stressing over. But he's so confident in his decision. It's a casual button press and a move on.
Yep.
Like, cool, do that. Put the laundry out, feed the cat,
Yep.
destroy the world, so on and so forth. And that's what I love that.
Yeah.
As well, that he included that.
Yeah. So anyway, great. It goes on. Things wrap up. Not quite as you'd expect it. Anyway, read the book if you haven't read the book. It's got a great ending as well. Kind of everything's up in the air. Did Ozymandias' wonderful plan succeed or not? Well, that's for the reader to decide. But Watchmen would eventually go on to be named on the all-time 100 novels list that came out in 2005. That's a critics' list of the best English language novels published since 1923. So Watchmen was the only graphic novel on that list. So yeah.
Yeah. I remember that was one of the reasons why I read it, and I'm sure it started a boom of graphic novels everywhere.
Yeah.
And the modern day bookstore having entire sections of, come and get your graphic novels, and collecting everything from Scott Pilgrim to old Batman issues, whatever movie they were currently working on, they re-release, and my shelves started to fill up with everything Joker related, and you get the collections of The Walking Dead, and it was a real boom period. There it is.
That's my giant absolute edition. It's bigger than my head. It's enormous. Lovely edition.
Fantastic. So my 2 copies are floating around the house as I try and convince my partner to read it.
Yes.
Sin City as well, suddenly, is there. And I don't want to, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, because I think that's part of how the Snyder film eventually kind of comes about. Is there anything else from that era, from that time frame, that we want to cover off?
Well, I guess we could just check in on Alan Moore. Because I
want to know more about Alan Moore, because I feel like you're down, but you've heralded him as a genius.
Yes.
That decided to then become a magician. But I feel like I've heard more rumors about this man being a bit of a grump, right? He is
a grump. Like Alan Moore, I think every single person he's worked with, Dave Gibbons, DC, Marvel, etc., he's fallen out with every single one of them. And in a lot of cases, you could see why. I'll go through some of the reasons why he fell out with DC in just a second. But at some point, if you fall out with everybody, you have to consider that maybe the problem is you, Alan. Like you are a genius. No one is denying that you are an absolute literary genius. But I think you might be a bit of hard work.
I can imagine at the time you've delivered, because from the reading I did, once the finals issue is out, they've collected everything. They collect everything together. It doesn't take years. I believe it's within months. You've got a collected edition, which was not common at the time.
No.
You've got all this praise. He must have been insanely in demand.
Yes.
Right? Please come, throwing cat, what's the next big idea? What's your next idea? Come and do this, come and do that. I assume, so it sounds like it all sort of fell apart.
Yeah, well, so the thing was, they said, "Great, Alan, fantastic. We love your work. We're going to put out this this collected edition, and you obviously get your royalties on that, of course. Perfectly good. And the really good thing, Alan, and this is Paul Levitz, who I mentioned earlier, the guy who bought Charlton Comics. He kind of worked his way. I think he's vice president of DC at this point. He's basically saying the next best thing about that, Alan, is that once this book goes out of print, all the rights to Watchmen will revert to you, and you can do whatever you want with them." And then Paul Levitz said, "But just between you and me, this book's never going out of print, buddy. This is staying in print forever, and you are never getting the rights back to this. So, so Levitz basically said, here's your deal, but I'm going to set up a distribution model where we are just going to reprint this book forever. And I was one of the people who bought it. I bought it 2 years later in '89. I bought the printer model, and you bought it. Like, we're part of the problem. And Alan Moore got the shits. He's just like, I'm never getting my fucking characters back. Do you
think he wanted to do more with this story?
I think if he got them back, he would have, yeah. Or who knows? But he certainly got very annoyed at the fact that that he wasn't going to get them back, and he couldn't do anything about it. He'd already fallen out with Marvel. Remember the Marvel Man, Miracle Man thing I told you about?
Yes.
But when they said you can't call him Marvel Man, he said, fine, never writing for you guys again. DC did this, like, fine, never writing for you again. And, that's DC and Marvel. That's who you write for if you want to get paid. So he's burning bridges everywhere where he goes, but he doesn't seem to care because he's so big that, like, he can go to Image Comics, he can go to all these kind of things that are just starting up in the 90s, and he can use his power of celebrity to kind of bring them up. So, and, he does some self-owned stuff, self-published stuff. Some of that is a shambles. Some of it actually results in books. But, so he's and of course he falls out with 90% of the people he collaborates with on those as well because he's Alan Moore.
That's fascinating. So he never quite produces anything that comes close to the Watchmen.
I mean, there are people who will say that things like From Hell are arguably better stuff. He did an entire line, like he did in the late 90s. I mean, he did the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which if you've only seen the movie, you'll go, oh, that's not that great. If you read the comic books, they're fucking brilliant. They are some of the cleverest things you are ever going to... Too clever by half in the end. It's just like, I don't know where you're getting all those ideas from, Alan. Yep. But he also creates an entire, his own little comic book studio. He calls it America's Best Comics, and he writes 4 comics a month for that. He's got different artists on and basically builds that up. And of course, that gets so popular that eventually it gets purchased by another company who is a subsidiary of DC. And then he's like, well, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
And I assume he falls out with all of his all the people, his collaborators.
Yes.
And of course, he's V for Vendetta.
Right? V for Vendetta was before Watchmen. But yes, that was massive as well. So he's got a... I mean, Watchmen is always going to be his biggest thing. But he does have a lot of other very famous books. And the kind of, like, Levitz, who, was this guy who came up with this scheme of always keeping the trade paperback in print forever so he couldn't get his rights back. Levitz is kind of this great shades of grey character because he's doing this kind of mischief. He's also the one who got Moore there. He set him up, got him with this good deal. Won't let you have your rights back, Alan, but that's okay. You'll get lots and lots of money. You'll get more money than you're ever going to need for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And then he said, and I will also make sure that nobody else will ever, you mentioned it before, for a long, long time, there was only the 12 issues, nothing else. Well, I'll come back to that. There is one other thing. And that was all because of Paul Levitz, from what I gather. Paul Levitz was saying, no, nobody else can touch this. This is Alan Moore's and Dave Gibbons, the entire team thing. That's their thing. We're not doing any sequels. We're not doing any prequels. We're not doing anything to do with Watchmen. We're going to look after this. It's our little Watchmen corner, and it will fund everybody. It will be a perennial bestseller, and no one's going to touch it. And then, of course, on September 2009, Levitz says, well, I'm getting old now. I'm going to step down from DC, and we'll come back to what happened after that, maybe in a future episode.
I do want to talk about that because, like you said, 2009, Watchmen, the movie comes out. There's word of new books, and I say to myself, you know what? Let's do it. And I end up with a recurring, what would you call it? A pull list? Did they used to call it a
pull list?
Yep, a pull list. Where you King's Comics was what the
I was a King's Comics man.
Yes, and I said every month I want you to pull out this, and this, and that's when I started my my comics journey because I think both Marvel and DC had worked out the boom was coming, and they both decided let's reset our worlds so that new people can come in and let's talk about that when we get to that time frame.
Yeah, that may have to be in a future episode. I think.
Yeah,
we don't
let's
want to
save
bore
that
people too long on this one.
No, that's right. That's right. I mean, I really want to talk about the movie, but the more we talk about it, I think we're gonna have to just talk about that movie in
Yeah,
its own
I
thing,
think
right? Like
so. Yeah.
before we can get to the TV series, which I desperately want to talk about, we're gonna have to enter the Snyderverse.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's what we'll get to next time. But before we wrap things up, I did have a little bit of fun, right? Because
Mm.
I was thinking to myself, what from that time period is still out there from from like I was like, I wonder, can you still even buy original prints and things like that? And I was like, I'm gonna hit up eBay. So got a little quiz for you, Dan.
Hmm.
What now, this is not the most expensive thing that you can buy related to Watchmen. There is something else that I found, but this is pretty close. If you wanted to buy all 12 issues in original print,
Ooh.
they've all been graded at a 9.8 or higher. So,
Yep.
you can get your trading cards, you can get your comic books graded.
Yep.
So these are all mint condition,
Yep.
all laid out. They look absolutely fantastic. What are you willing to pay, Dan? You can buy it right now on eBay.
Like, well, what I'm willing to pay is not what they, not what they'll accept. That must
I
cost
think
thousands, right?
I think you'd be surprised though. I was a little bit shocked at how accessible this is.
Is it less than 10,000?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I personally, like, if someone said to me you can get this for 1,000, I'd be sorely tempted, but I probably wouldn't go above 2,000.
Yeah, no. If let's there's a really good Simpsons episode about this. Why don't you chip in 3.5 grand? I'll chip in 3.5 grand. I'll have the first six, you have the back six, and then we'll swap
Yeah.
halfway through the year. It'll
Yes.
work out perfectly. So 7 grand will get you
Seven
the
grand.
original.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
the
feels about
original.
right.
Yep.
So what's that? That's
The
about $600 an issue. Is that about right? Is that right? Have I got my numbers right there? 600
yeah,
by 12?
it's
Yeah,
about there.
roughly.
Now, the most expensive thing that you can currently buy from this era is a what they call an association copy. So
Mhm.
it's signed by Alan Moore. So
Ooh,
this is
Jesus.
it's still the collected graphic novel,
Yep.
but it's a special edition. It's leather bound. It's black. It looks amazing. I'll put a photo of it up on the socials. It's described as a copy signed by Alan Moore on the title page and inscribed to a longtime Image Comics employee and friend of Spawn creator Todd McFarlane.
Hmm.
So he signed it to a man named Terence Fitzgerald, and he's written on the inside cover with thanks for being such a pleasure to work with, Alan Moore. So I was like,
Bloody hell.
guys
I'm
are
changing my name to Terence Fitzgerald if I buy that. I said, that's fine.
Yep. So he's it literally says, "Hi Terry, with thanks for being such a pleasure to work with." And I was like, you can't tell me that this Alan Moore bloke is a real stick in the mud because that sounds like a wonderful sentiment. So apparently Alan Moore wrote the 8th issue of Spawn.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yep.
He and like Neil Gaiman, I think Grant Morrison wrote one. Like basically, they got
Yeah,
in because
they all had
Image started up, and it was all the hotshot artists from Marvel. They broke off and started their own studio, and
Yeah.
they were made fun of because none of them knew how to write. They just drew lots of pretty pictures of fights and stuff.
Yeah.
So they said, "All right, we'll get in some real writers," and they were making so much money from the pretty art that basically they paid $100,000 to Alan Moore to write one issue. It was just like,
Oh,
fine, I'll write an issue of your stupid comic.
Geez, I could talk forever about. There's a whole we could. Who's the bloke that could never draw feet? That's a story
Liefeld.
for another day.
Rob Liefeld.
Yes, the guy that created Cable and
Yep.
Deadpool and that. Yeah, couldn't draw feet. Google that. You'll have a great time. Now the other thing I want to talk about at this. Oh no, sorry, I didn't even give you the. What are we paying for? Original copy of the collected works signed by Alan Moore to his good mate Terry. We'll set you back.
If you'd signed it to Dan, I'd pay like 20 grand for that. No, maybe not, but I'd pay a lot of money.
No, 8,500.
That's
So
pretty good.
yeah. This edition was from 1989. So the only other thing I really wanted to cover, Dan, was because we are going to eventually, because we will talk about the Snyder film. I sort of wondered to myself, well, when did they start trying to make a movie?
Yeah, really early is the answer.
And the answer is pretty much straight away, like
Yep.
back in like 1987. So Joel Silver, who is a massive
Yep.
Hollywood producer, he was the first one to have a crack at it, and in terms of producing, right, getting the rights to it. And I find that hilarious because back in 1987, Joel Silver's output at that time is like Lethal Weapon, Predator, Die Hard. Those films all look like they just have like a classic 80s.
Yep.
They all look the same, kind of in a way, and you can almost picture in your head a very washed out Watchmen, maybe not as camp, but yeah, a bit of blood or something. But he was the first to get his hands on it.
Yeah.
But he brought in Terry Gilliam,
Yes.
which is bizarre.
Yeah.
And we talked about 12 Monkeys in our Lost podcast being the most Terry Gilliam movie to ever be directed by Terry Gilliam. I cannot fathom a version of Watchmen made by that man. Apparently, creative differences and $25 million budget wasn't enough for Gilliam. Yeah, he needed more. Into the 90s.
Well, before that, like the original script for that one, that was written by the guy who wrote the 1989 Batman movie. And I think his name was like Sam Hamm or something.
That's right, Sam Hamm.
Yeah.
Yes. But they weren't happy with the script, went too far from the source material because everyone suddenly got a problem with the ending.
Yes.
And apparently he sandwiched his solution to the ending was assassination attempts and some time paradox stuff.
Yes.
So he was going to play with time travel.
He was going to change it so that I think the big twist at the end for this one was going to be that somehow Rorschach and all these guys are actually now in our world, our real world.
Yeah,
I think that was the twist at the end.
Yep, some just
change of time. Yeah, something happened. Yeah.
All avoiding the. I mean, what this all has in common is that they're trying to avoid a very brave and bold decision that Alan Moore made all the way back at the beginning. Eventually, you get to Universal Pictures having a crack. You've got the team that wrote X-Men, which was quite successful. David Hayter had a crack, but no, it never really sort of went anywhere. Warner Brothers get to have a go at it. They bring in Darren Aronofsky. Mm-hmm. So around this period, he's basically just made Pi, which was very big on the indie circuit, 1998, and then he would have Requiem for a Dream, a film that still gives me nightmares. But is absolutely required viewing. And that one I can almost imagine, but again, he's not, doesn't strike me as the kind of comic book type or the action type. No. And then Paul Greengrass, who is known for the Bourne films.
Oh, okay.
So now we're in the sort of early thousands, but again, he doesn't have anything of note to his name until maybe 2006 when he starts up the Bourne franchise. So those are a couple of guys that were brought in. Again, none of it goes anywhere.
No one can make it work.
No one can make it work until we get to about 2005, and someone's going to make it work, and that might be perhaps the best place to leave it, Dan.
Yes, I think so. Before we do, I do want to mention, I said earlier that the only thing for a long time related to the Watchmen was, of course, the actual story itself. And that was all there was. Alan Moore wrote that, and there was nothing else. But there was something else, and I've got that something else. Because there is a Watchmen supplement to the DC Heroes role-playing game, which I got in 1989 or 1990. But before Alan Moore got the shits with DC and left, he wrote a supplement of Watchmen DC Heroes role-playing game, and it's got extra Watchmen content, it's got backstory, it's got another mission that they went on, and you could play it with your friends in the DC Heroes role-playing game. So that's Alan Moore's extra bonus piece of information on the Watchmen, which is very hard to find, but I've had it now for however many years that is. Closing it on 40 years now, I've had this extra piece of Watchmen information.
That's amazing. So you still have this. Like what is it? Is it a book?
Yeah, it's a little, you get a role-playing book, you got all the rules of how to play, and then you get, here's the event, here's the mission you're going to go on. And in this mission, you could play Rorschach, and Chris, you're Rorschach, and someone else, Fiona, she could be Silk Spectre, and off you're going to go, and you're going to fight in this mission. Yeah. And I'll be the games master, and I'll work out exactly what's going on, and roll your dice and see if you can punch the bad guy in the head. And that was a unique collector's item for a long time. I think they actually republished it not long ago, but I've got the original.
Right, okay. That's incredible. That's something to hold. That sounds like some LARPing action there, Dan. I'd love to say do you know where it is?
It's in my cupboard just over there.
Hopefully we can.
I'll bring it out for the next recording session.
Yeah, no, we'll maybe we can try and put an image up on the socials as well. Do that. Yes. Well, I'd love to stay a bit longer in Alan Moore time, in Watchmen comic time, but I really want to talk about the movie, which is going to set us up really well for.
We will talk about the Lindelof TV series eventually. I promise you guys, we will. We'll get there.
We will get there. But until then, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for coming back.
Yes.
And we will talk to you next time.
Yeah, I think we're going to need a new name for the podcast, right?
Well, actually, yeah, you're right. We can't sign off because we're not talking about Lost anymore.
No.
What are we going to do?
Let's call it Rewatching the Watchmen.
I love it. Rewatching who rewatches the Watchmen?
We do.
We
Yes.
Rewatch the Watchmen. Excellent. Well, thank you for listening to Rewatching the Watchmen.
Yep.
And Dan, cue the outro.
Thank you for listening to Rewatching the Watchmen. If you have any feedback on anything you've heard in this episode, or even if you just want to share some of your own favourite Watchmen memories, no need to drop off your journal to a right-wing newspaper. You could just contact us via email at lostwithinlostpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on the socials. We're on Twitter, or X as some of you may know it, and we're also on Blue Sky, both of those at Lost Within Lost. Come and say hello. And meanwhile, thank you for listening.
Mad scientist stuff? I mean, when was this hopeless black fantasy supposed to happen? When were you planning to do it?
Do it? Dan, do you seriously think I'd explain my master stroke if there remained the slightest chance of you affecting its outcome? I did it 35 minutes ago.